Gannon's gun went off, and immediately he knew he had failed, as he could feel Alder holding his arm up to the roof. He also felt the blade that had been lodged in his neck, and as he coughed and fell to the ground, Alder kneeled over his body. With all his strength left, he managed to force out the words, "I was only trying to protect him," before passing away. As much as she was angry at him for forcing her to kill him, Alder felt regret over it having to come to this. She went to sit back down as the guards came in asking what happened. She blankly stated the Major had betrayed the Enclave. As the guards dragged away Gannon's lifeless body, she wondered what could have been done differently, what could have changed. But what's done was done. She had to focus on the coming storm, the NCR. However, her attention was drawn back to her own actions when many of the officers wanted to know why Gannon would betray them. Alder could only reason that he wanted to control the Enclave himself and that he tried to kill her. While the security recordings backed up her claims, there still remained an air of mistrust in Alder and her leadership, but for now at least, they had more important things to focus on. Spies were sent to the NCR to gather information on their next move, while Navarro continued its work on Project Annihilation. If the NCR attacked again, it's possible the Enclave would be wiped out, so the base was put on high alert until further notice. For the moment, all anyone else could do was wait. The days began to pass slowly, and then they began to merge together. Time started to lose meaning. Everyone knew they were hanging on the edge. They knew if they saw NCR troops marching on the horizon, that it was the end. The morale was at rock bottom. Some started deserting, others took a more direct ticket out. After what seemed like an eternity, the project was finally complete. The old world's slumber had ended. It was time to mobilize and reclaim what they had lost. One of the last few remaining vertibirds was given the payload to use against the NCR. The crew loaded up and took off without a word. They knew what they had to do. The question now was whether they had the resolve to complete their mission. The vertibird flew high over the new California Republic, preparing to end its existence in one strike. All the commander had to do was arm the device and throw it from the vertibird. The chute activated automatically as the timer ticked down to 0. The entirety of the NCR was engulfed in burning white, erasing any trace of its existence. Unfortunately, the vertibird was caught in the blast and the crew was lost. The commander must have failed to set the timer properly. Nonetheless, the mission was complete, the NCR was gone, and the Enclave could regain their supremacy. Yet, as Navarro celebrated another victory, the days that followed yielded worse news. One of the last few outposts reported sightings of NCR military remnants. Upon tailing them, they were seen interacting with a group wearing power armor, a cult named the Brotherhood of Steel. This news was severely alarming, that they were NCR survivors, but also that they were collaborating with the Brotherhood of Steel. It was a certainty that they were aware of Navarro's location. The NCR alone may be manageable due to their losses, but the Brotherhood of Steel was a whole different picture. They had access to power armor and energy weapons, while still inferior to Enclave tech, definitely bridged the gap between Enclave and NCR equipment. The exact size and location of the Brotherhood was also unknown. Scouts were sent out to gather intel on the Brotherhood and NCR remnants. After days they came back with reports of numerous bases all around the area, and likely much more in the greater region. The idea of a single strike was clearly out of the question. There was little to no options moving forward, but the desperation was climbing fast, especially after night fell and a Brotherhood NCR unit was spotted marching from the south. 2 vertibirds were deployed to take down this threat. The birds began strafing the hostiles, carpet bombing them and lighting up the area in the process. Although it seemed the birds had the advantage, one of the Brotherhood soldiers fired some sort of beam at one of the vertibirds, and it came crashing down to the ground. The other bird had no choice but to immediately retreat. The hostiles must have had the same thought too, as they quickly left into the night. This news was alarming. The Brotherhood of Steel clearly had access to a weapon capable of taking down vertibirds, one of the few advantages the Enclave had left. With that bird lost, Navarro was down to only 2 vertibirds, and there was only 2 total between the remaining outposts. The situation was dire for the Enclave. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and all alone. Alder had no choice but to search for old military installations in the archives, or what was left of them. Of the few places that there were still records of, all were offline, all but one. The missile complexes that snaked their way through the towns of Hopeville and Ashton remained active after all those years. This was the chance that Alder needed, a whole complex of silos, and if the systems were accurate, the missiles were never fired. This would be enough to wipe out what remained of the NCR and all of the Brotherhood's bunkers, wherever they may be. Alder called a meeting to discuss the plan of capturing the silos, but once in the briefing room with everyone, she was stunned how little there were left. How many had been lost already, and she looked over at the makeshift nursery where Arcade was sleeping, with Ganon's words echoing through her head. The voice of doubt crept into her head, forcing her to consider whether this was the right option. She had to make a decision, whether to continue the plan and eradicate the Enclave's enemies, or perhaps, was it time to give it up and leave this place with what little was left? You decide.